Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse podcast. This is episode number 288. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today, we have Ken Bakley. How are you, Ken?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain. Doing okay. So this is your third time on the podcast and the first time co-hosting on the regular show. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling pretty good. I will be a capable substitute.
Nice. Yeah. Kevin bailed because Kevin's a loser.
Yeah, we know that though, but we love him anyway.
Yeah. Flaky Kevin. That's what I'm going to call him. Good old Flaky Kevin. So this week on the show, we'll be talking about John Woo's Manhunt, along with someone we've been watching on the watch list, and previewing some new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we jump into our review, got a couple of housekeeping things. It's a larger list than usual because it's the beginning of the month, so more stuff to go over. There's going to be a new Film Pulse Selects film dropping this Thursday, so be sure to check that out. And as always, if you're one of our patrons on Patreon, you can get the movie a week in advance. So if you want early access to all the films that we stream on the site, head over to patreon.com/filmpulse. There is going to be a new Ryan Watches a Movie this week. It's been a long hiatus for that show, but Ryan's feeling better. He's on the mend. And we had him watch The Babysitter's Club from 1995 this week, so don't miss that. It's going to be a good one.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's going to be out on Friday, so keep a lookout for that. And our May giveaway is up right now. We're giving away a copy of The Virgin Suicides on Criterion Collection Blu-ray this month. So you can check the site for more information on entering that. And remember, to be eligible, you have to fill out the form and be a subscriber on our newsletter or one of our patrons. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. It's a good Criterion, by the way. I reviewed it on the site. It's a
good movie, too.
It's a great movie. You know, I revisited it for the first time in many years, and it holds up. It really does. It's gorgeous film. Just gorgeous.
It really is.
Finally, I want to give a shout out to our latest patron, Andy. Andy's been a longtime supporter of Film Pulse, and he just re-upped his subscription. So thank you very, very much, Andy, for your continued support. And with that, I think we'll dive into our review of Manhunt. As I said, this is directed by John Woo. I have a synopsis here. Accused of heinous crimes he didn't commit, a prosecutor sets out on a mission to clear his name. Oh boy. Ken, since you're our guest this week, why don't you start us off? What did you think of Manhunt?
I generally liked it just sort of as a technical marvel from somebody like John Woo. I'll confess that I'm not terribly familiar with a lot of his work. Sort of ashamed to admit he's one of my blind spots. I just watched Face Off for the very first time earlier this week.
Oh wow.
So I didn't have a lot to base this off of. But even from the minimal experience I have, I think this is sort of a movie that's going to land better with a lot of longtime fans of his rather than maybe more newcomers, because it feels very much like a play the hits kind of movie from him.
Oh yeah. Yes. You are absolutely 100% correct on that. So this is a return to Hong Kong style action for John Woo. It's not a period piece. It's not this kind of sci-fi action American hybrid that he did for a while there. It's just a straight up action movie. And it, like you said, the whole greatest hits aspect of it is completely on point, because this is exactly what you would expect with a classic John Woo movie, for better and for worse, I think. For me, this movie was sort of middle of the road. What you were saying about it, you were just sort of impressed with it on a technical level, and I was impressed with it on a technical level if this came out in 1993, but for today's standards, I thought it was okay.
What I mean by that isn't necessarily that he's innovating. It's just maybe when I say impressed, I mean more impressed with the consistency of one filmmaker, because I'm familiar with some of his early stuff. I'm only vaguely familiar with some of his Hollywood stuff. And one thing that you notice, and I think we have discussed this maybe not on mic, but off mic, but I have this kind of thing for consistency in a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so when I say that I was impressed, I don't mean that he's innovating. I mean that I'm almost kind of amazed at how many decades he can go without trying to reinvent the wheel. So you can say that it's like something that came out in 1993, and I can say that I'm technically impressed with it, and we're basically talking about the same thing.
Yeah, and it is kind of a testament to the filmmaker's style, right? Like, he's made, these giant epics since then, and most of his Hollywood movies, he was still able to incorporate sort of the certain signatures of his directing style. But this one feels so much like a classic John Woo movie from the early 90s. It's so, like, I don't know if it was intentional. Like, I don't know if he was deliberately trying to make it feel like a movie that is not of this era or what. But I mean, he definitely nailed that, especially with a lot of from the score, for one thing, the odd choices that he would make with the saxophone music and the sort of softcore porn style soundtrack of this movie. And like, he would have this like soft music playing during action sequences, and it's just like, you're like, well, this doesn't really fit. But then if you think about some of his other movies,
it does fit.
It does fit. Like, it kind of fits perfectly in that. And then you also have a lot of the telltale John Woo visual cues as well. You have the oddly placed slow motion sequences that seem to mean nothing. That like he'll
if anything, they kind of almost hurt the pacing of a scene at times, just because in terms of just the general ubiquity through which they're used, even here. I think something that sets this work apart from maybe some of his earlier stuff is that because this is a director coming back and playing the hits, it almost feels like it's not taking itself as seriously as the best John Woo movies do.
Yeah, I completely got that impression as well. Like, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I totally got that same exact impression. Like, is he sort of poking fun of it himself in this? Is he sort of, is this like a self-reflection on his early work? Like, what I wasn't really sure if that was something that he was trying to do, but it's definitely something that he came out in the final product.
Yeah, this is, you can absolutely tell somebody who has been making a kind of movie like this for decades and is coming back and is making another one like the early work, and for whatever better or for worse that entails, it's very much coming off like somebody who has been doing this for a very long time, knows all of the ropes and the ticks of his style, and has worked through that. And when it's at best, it's sort of this very fun, breezy throwback, and at its worst, it feels like you can't tell how sincere this particular execution of the style is.
And there's just so much cheese going on in this movie.
Oh yeah,
it's unbelievable. The dialogue in this movie is
amazing.
It is so absurd. Some of the things that are said. I actually wrote down some things.
I almost wrote them down, but then I forgot. But please share with the world.
All right, let me find my place here, because this is the one of the first things that I wrote was so just to give some backstory, there's this pharmaceutical company, and they're about to unveil this secret new drug. But the funny thing in which there was this little like investor meeting or company meeting that happened towards the beginning of the film, and it was sort of like the president of the company got up on stage, and he was sort of giving this exposition as to like what this company was and what was going on. But all he really said was, my son will take over the development of a new drug. And then everybody's just clapping. Like, he didn't describe anything about what it was or anything like that. And then when they introduced the main character, he's like, as a professional lawyer, my job is to take on a case and win it. And there's just lines like that where you're just like, all right. And then when, so the cop, you have this like all-star badass cop, and he ends up that when they introduce him, which is, first of all, what a way to introduce the character, right? Where he's just saving this kid from these like random dudes that are like these random nut jobs that are trying to blow up this kid for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid asks him, he's like, how can I be a man like you? And the guy just goes, whether it's something you should do or don't want to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, all right.
There's so many great sentences in this movie that try to feel profound, but are actually just circular series of words that mean absolutely nothing.
And at first I thought, maybe there's something lost in translation here. You know, these are subtitles. Maybe that has something to do with it. But the fact that they happen so frequently, it's hard to believe that this is not what they're saying and meaning.
Yeah, and I think going off that point, there's so many things about the actual scripting of this movie that don't make a terrible amount of sense. And of course, you're not going into a John Woo movie for the intricacies of the plot, but it's kind of remarkable just the number of threads going on in this movie that don't really amount to anything at all.
Oh, yeah. They're, like a lot of these action movies, it is needlessly convoluted. Like, there's so much added complexity to this narrative that you're just like, do we need all this? Do we need this like subplot with the assassin girls and their whole story, and just all of there's so much like minutia to each character and like all the different threads that are happening to them. And it's just like, okay, this is just, it's so much.
Yeah. When you contrast it with how John Woo directs an action scene, he's known for these incredibly long and complicated action scenes, but he's always very clear-headed. There's always a vision. You can always tell what's happening in relation to something else and everything in proportion, which really contrasts with the way this particular movie has been written, which is just everything happening with no regard to the proportion of how it affects anything else.
That's exactly right. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, at one point, the lead, this lawyer who is wrongfully accused, he's framed for the murder of this woman, and he's on the run. It's very much a fugitive story here. He ends up becoming friends with these vagrants, and in one of, I think, maybe the best conversations in the movie, for some reason John Woo decides to just stop the motion and have the conversation play out in still images for some reason. I don't know if you remember that, but
oh, how could I forget
it's
it?
like, what is going on here? Why are they having a conversation in still images? And it like that alone just felt so dated, and again, maybe that was the intention, but it just was really weird to me.
Yeah. My first instinct was that had to be self-referential somehow. Like, that's maybe also what I meant when I said just sort of technically impressive, because I thought it was almost like John Woo parodying a John Woo movie. So it was kind of this meta commentary on not only his own filmmaking style, but the legacy that 40 years of his movies have had. But then after a while, I thought, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know exactly where one part of this ends and another part begins.
I don't think that it really was sort of him. And maybe it was him trying to recreate some of the films that he made, but it really wasn't. It felt like it was in earnest, and it didn't feel like he was sort of poking fun at himself, because the movie was so self-serious. Like there was nothing.
Yeah.
There were no like goofs or gags or any kind of like light-hearted moments really. And that leads me to believe that he did this all with a lot of sincerity. And I just found that it for me, it just, a lot of it didn't really work. I appreciated what he was doing, but then again, I will say a disclaimer that I'm not the biggest John Woo fan. I like a number of his films, but I wasn't like a diehard, John Woo, not like some people.
Yeah, I think even someone like me that's only really coming to him recently, or especially after the main wave of his influence, is that you can't really look at any part of John Woo's style now and not instantaneously think about how however many years he's been a mainstream action influence has not spread to basically every single action movie that has been made in the interim by anybody.
And I think that that's an interesting concept, because when you look at some of his early films, when you look at like The Killer or Better Tomorrow, or especially Hard Boiled, like these movies were influencers. These movies were groundbreaking for the time. I mean, I remember like when The Killer came out, and the level of action, the level of high octane, crazy over the top action, and the amount of violence that was in that movie was just on a whole other level. And I think that, as you said, it was extremely influential in the action genre. And I think that we're still seeing sort of the ripple effects of his influence in the genre. But when you go back to like the beginnings of it, it doesn't feel fresh and new. It feels dated and old and kind of silly, especially like a lot of the visual techniques that he uses, and a lot of the camera work and stuff. Some of it looks amazing to this day. Like I will say that the action sequences in this movie, the way that they're shot and framed, it's top notch. I mean, the camera movement and just everything, that the way that he's able to capture a shootout or a fight scene. I mean, it's truly an art. But a lot of the other aspects, the random slow motion and just the silly, goofy dialogue and the freeze frames and all that stuff, they feel so dated. And I think that that's because all of these other filmmakers took, what Woo innovated on and then iterated onto it, creating something that we now know is like the modern action film.
Yeah, and I don't think he has an obligation to keep innovating if it's the work of other people coming after him that have made his own work seem somehow dated if you look back at it, or you make a movie now with it. I think he has every right to make a movie that is just like the ones that he was making before he was considered sort of this influential icon. Just what I think is interesting is watching a movie like this, which is, in the most objective sense, a very well polished series of elaborate action scenes and fight scenes, and you can take that in isolation and say this is a pretty well made movie. But then you put it in the greater pantheon of not only its director's work, but everything that its director has influenced through not only his early Hong Kong stuff, but his later Hollywood period. And you think this is almost like a filmmaker sort of just using his own devices back again as kind of this very throwback movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And maybe that was his intent. I mean, maybe he's just been really eager to get back to putting those doves on screen and having them fly all over the place. And
I was so happy when I finally saw the doves.
the doves. Well, the best thing is I rewatched. So I watched a couple John Woo movies for the first time this week, and I rewatched. I rewatched Hard Target, which is actually one of my favorite John Woo movies. I love Hard Target, and it made me realize, because there were so I rewatched. So I saw Manhunt, Hard Target, and then I watched Paycheck, the Ben Affleck one, because I never saw that. Kind of regretting that I watched that. And then I watched a film called Blackjack starring Dolph Lundgren, which was that was actually filmed as a pilot for a TV show, and it never got picked up. So I guess they just released it as a TV movie or something. And he uses doves in on all of them. I think that most of his action movies have those doves somewhere. But I think the interesting thing is, like, he doesn't just use them as this sort of aesthetic, Easter egg. He often will use them as an actual plot device. Like he'll insert the dove in such a way that the protagonist or whoever is in the scene with the dove will somehow use it to further along the narrative, which I think is just so great that he does that.
The dove is not like a Hitchcock cameo with it's not just a signature with no plot repercussion. It is often a key part of whatever scene it's appearing in.
Yeah, it's definitely not just set dressing. It's an integral part of the, like in Hard Target, like Van Damme just sees the dove and that like influences him on, like it gives him an idea of like what's going on next, and it's just like, all right, that's cool.
Hypothetically, this should have just been like, in an ideal world, it would have just been a continual progression to which John Woo's final movie in his career would be sometime down the line, and it's just a CGI or an animated action movie where all the characters are doves.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. Just doves flying and fighting, and there's like dust in the air, dust particles.
There's feathers flying everywhere. That is where it needs to be.
I completely agree. So, in summation, I would say that for diehard John Woo fans, I think Manhunt is definitely a must-watch, especially because it's on Netflix. Most people have Netflix. You can just give it a look right now. There were a lot of weird... I thought that the dialogue, the mixture of the Japanese, Chinese, and English dialogue, I thought often did not work in the film's favor. A lot of it was overdubbed, and it felt very odd. A lot of the dialogue, just besides being somewhat haphazardly written, the delivery, the line delivery on these a lot of the actors just felt very stilted and strange.
I think it could have been even a different feeling movie entirely if it was just bizarre dialogue delivered with complete sincerity. But once you get around to the point where it's just sort of dubbing and language switching, it gets a little bit too into the weeds for even that.
Yeah. Overall, I had fun with the film, though. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely I had issues with it, but I had a pretty good time with it. I don't know if it's a movie that I'll remember 2 weeks from now. It's probably a movie that I will forget about. To me, it does feel like classic John Woo, but again, in this current climate, when you have movies like The Raid and The Raid 2 and some of these, bigger action films, at least in my opinion, bigger.
Yeah.
The lasting power just isn't there for something like Manhunt. When you have like Hard Target, that's a film from my youth, so I'm never going to forget that. And plus, a lot of the stuff that happens in Hard Target is just utterly ridiculous. And with Manhunt, you had certainly ridiculous moments, but it wasn't like Van Damme levels of ridiculous or Dolph Lundgren levels of silliness. Can I just tell you about, are you familiar with the movie Blackjack?
A little bit, yeah.
So Dolph Lundgren plays this guy who's this he's like this bodyguard guy who has a fear of white. He has a fear of the color white. So he has to wear sunglasses all the time, and if he's ever around anything that's very white, he like freaks out and he can't do anything. It's amazing. It's a guy who has the fear of white. And of course there's a sequence where he's fighting the main villain in a giant vat of milk. And
amazing.
And everything in the milk factory is white. So it's just pure white everywhere.
That is incredible, and I think I need to watch that immediately.
It's really one of Woo's, I think, worst projects. It feels very much like a TV show. Like they edit in like fade outs for commercials and stuff. So
yeah.
it is not good. But Dolph Lundgren's pretty good in it. And
does the fear of white come up with the inevitable use of doves?
Sort of, yeah, because there's this moment towards the end where he's trying to conquer his fear because he has to get over it in order to save the girl. So he does this sort of therapy where he says out loud nice things that are white. So he'll be like snowflakes, doves. And so that definitely comes into it, but there are regular doves in it as well, of course.
If it were picked up as a TV show, would every episode just be him trying to get over another irrational fear?
Oh man, that would be amazing.
This week on Blackjack, Dolph Lundgren conquers his fear of incandescent light bulbs.
Oh boy, Blackjack. Check that one out. That's on.
I have to now.
It's on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can see it there. It is a really bad quality version. It's like the 4x3.
Turn the brightness up. Everything's white.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's go ahead and give Manhunt a score. Ken, what are you going to give it out of 10?
I'm going to give it a 6.5.
I'm going to go with the 6 on Manhunt. So again, that's on Netflix. Light recommend for me. Check it out. It's decent. Had a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Pretty good time with it.
It's a fun time.
It's laughable, but maybe that's in a good way.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed with a lot of John Woo movies, I find myself laughing at the movie, but it doesn't hamper my enjoyment of it. Like even if you rewatch Hard Boiled, like Hard Boiled is ridiculous, especially the baby scene in that.
Just about every John Woo movie is ridiculous in its own way, and I think in his very best movies, there's a certain degree to which it plays straight, where there's a difference between, and I think to this movie's disadvantage is that there is so much happening in it that it's just kind of that just through the way it's made kind of can't treat with the same level of immediate seriousness and sincerity that sort of helps along the ridiculousness in the best John Woo movies. Like, as someone who just saw Face Off for the very first time, Face Off is maybe one of the most outwardly ridiculous movies just that you could think of and put on $100 million budget to that doesn't involve, superheroes. But it's all played with an internal logic that makes it all work within its universe. A movie like this one kind of falters a little bit more in that respect, just because there's so much happening, it can't form that same kind of cohesive thought line.
Yeah, I love Face Off. I think it's
remarkable.
Let's use that as a segue into our watch list, and tell me a little bit more about what you thought of Face Off.
They take some faces off.
So they take the one face off,
and they take off,
and then they take the other face off, and then they then they put them back on.
Then they have to put the face back on, and then it's just this movie, as has been said continuously since it came out, I think, if nothing else, the second thing you think of after thinking about just the action scenes in this movie are what a wonderful opportunity it is for any actor to play a lead part in this, but especially this weirdly workable juxtaposition of Travolta and Cage, because this is a dream for any actor to be able to play this absurdly over-the-top movie where for a majority of the movie you're also playing somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, plus Travolta and Cage, come on.
Yeah.
Is there a better duo? Is there a better crazy duo to put in front of your movie?
The ubiquitous trivia fact that it was going to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, there is a certain degree and tone to this movie that could have only happened with Travolta and Cage.
Yeah, I mean, you see, this is back when Nicolas Cage, this is after leaving Las Vegas, I think, right? And so this is like sort of when Cage was blowing up. And this is after Travolta made his comeback with Pulp Fiction. So both of these guys were they were on the rise, like big time. And this movie really helped propel them and propel their careers on this upward trajectory. And it was when, Nicolas Cage has always been kind of crazy in his roles, but I feel like he was really able, because I guess he was sort of crazy in leaving Las Vegas, but I feel like he was able to be a little bit more unhinged in this role. And it's just, man, I had so much fun with this movie. This might be maybe my favorite of the Woo movies. Certainly my favorite of his Hollywood movies.
Yeah. There is Nicolas Cage, for all the memeing that gets made out of him, is a really, really just capable individual actor when you give him a role that suits just his almost undescribably operatic style.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different formats of acting and art through the years that he could have excelled in, just because he is so uniquely expressive.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I really wish that he would stop doing what he's doing with like just pumping out these just movie after movie after movie. I wish he would just tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Just cool it, because I feel like it hurts his brand. Like because he'll come out with like one or two good movies a year, and I think the problem is that they just get lost in the giant garbage pile that the dude makes like 10 movies a year. It's insane.
Yeah.
But then like he'll just make like this straight to VOD trash, and then all of a sudden he's like in it's the movie Mandy that's coming out, the guy that did Beyond the Black Rainbow, Panos Cosmatos, like that movie. He's in that, and it's like the most insane thing that I've seen Nicolas Cage in maybe ever. I mean, like it's got to be one of his craziest movies. Even
and that is saying something.
Yeah, and I mean, he's played a lot of really crazy roles, but he's just so off this rocker in this movie. And I'm just afraid that movie is just going to get swept under the rug because he's in so much other kind of, not great stuff.
I think to make sure that people are seeing the best Nicolas Cage movies right now, we need to bring onto the site. We need to hire like a new set of reviewers whose only purpose is to just watch all the Nicolas Cage movies and then determine which ones are the best ones. We need like a specifically assigned like Nicolas Cage assessment committee.
That sounds like a job for an intern. I think we could get an intern to handle
all
that.
Right.
I think that sounds like a good plan. But
yeah.
So yeah, Face Off. Big fan of that one as well. Sticking with the Asian film theme, I saw a film called Psychokinesis. This is a Korean film by Young Sang-ho. This is the guy that directed Train to Busan.
Mhm.
a couple years ago. And so this one is it's a, sort of a superhero style movie. I believe this is on Netflix. I watched it on Netflix. It's about this guy who, through drinking some tainted spring water, discovers that
As you do.
of course, discovers that he has telekinesis. So he can control things with his mind. He can even control himself. He can make himself fly. He can pick up things and throw things, and he uses that to help his daughter, his estranged daughter, fight these developers who are trying to tear down her fried chicken shop in their little part of town. And
Is it like people that that are real sticklers about healthy eating and they just need to violently dismantle?
no, it's more pedestrian than that. It's definitely just these land developers that are trying to build a mall there for Chinese tourists. And it's pretty good. I had fun with it. It's definitely more lighthearted than Train to Busan or some of the director's animated movies that he did previously, like Seoul Station or The Fake, which were both great, but certainly a little bit more dour than this movie. But Psychokinesis it's a pretty fun movie about sort of the father-daughter dynamic and him trying to be a better father to his daughter after being away from her for so many years. And it's got some pretty fun action sequences in it too. The effects work is, not great, but it's not horrible either. It's pretty fun. So I'd give it a light recommend. Right. Psychokinesis is the name of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, going with the telekinesis in film theme, I've kind of had this thing for like real sort of dated things, sort of objects that were trying to be really hip and modern in their time, and then like before they become retro, they have to be dated and they just have to look absurd. So last week I watched The Rage Carrie 2.
Oh man, I saw this in the theater, if you can believe
that. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Which, like, this is 1999. This is, and I will make myself very young, this is the year I was born. This is the so I was a little bit fascinated with like just the popular culture era that I just missed. And this movie is so obscenely trying to be like the sort of the hip post like Natural Born Killers in terms of like editing, post Scream in terms of like trying to be like just sort of a weird kind of almost referential horror, and it's just all of the things that happen in it make it basically just a 1999 remake of Carrie. However, they try to tie it in as a sequel through like a couple, like one, like the Sue Snell, the Amy Irving character showing up again. But yes, once it gets going, it's just sort of a very fun bit of nothingness. Somebody gets killed by flying CDs.
That was the one moment that I remember. And Brad from Home Improvement's in it, and he plays the bad guy. I remember that. Oh man, The Rage Carrie 2. Wow.
It is not a good movie, but it is an enjoyable movie. And it gets more enjoyable over time, I think. It could just go from being a generic sort of movie that's trying too hard to an incredible, overwhelmingly overpacked time capsule of all of like the little late 90s pop cultural minutiae it was trying to squeeze in.
God, I don't think I've seen that since I saw it in the theater, because I remember I hated it so much. Even as I was watching it, I wanted to leave. I just hated it so bad. I think now, if I watched it now, I would certainly appreciate it more, especially because recently I've been really gravitating towards these 90s movies, like 90s action movies, 90s horror movies. Mm-hmm. So I think that I probably would appreciate it more now, as an older person, just because of maybe the nostalgia factor.
Yeah, I'd say you might get something at least mildly interesting out of rewatching it. It's like a lot of the sort of the teen-oriented horror movies that come out now will take on a whole new life in a couple decades when they're just kind of just more objects of their time than anything else. Like the example I always go to is I want to watch a movie like Unfriended in 25 years.
Yeah.
Just this very specific, not only conflation of marketing to teenagers of the mid 2010s, but also capturing a very specific part of where technology was just as its whole reason for existing.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I love genre film so much, is because when you look at any kind of genre film, especially horror, but also, rewatching some of these older John Woo movies from the 90s, action movies certainly fit in that mold as well. I feel like genre movies more than anything else are definitely a time capsule. Like they encapsulate the pop culture and sort of the zeitgeist of that era that they came out in. And that's one of the reasons I love them so much, is because they really just capture a time period. And I love that about all genre movies, but especially horror movies. Speaking of which, I saw Herschel Gordon Lewis's 2000 Maniacs from 1964.
All right.
It's a little classic H.G. Lewis bit of nonsense here. This is going to be getting a Blu-ray release on Arrow. Arrow's putting it out, and I'm going to be working on a review for that in the near future. So gave that a look, and with the Blu-ray, you also get Herschel Gordon Lewis's Moonshine Mountain, which came out just a few months after 2000 Maniacs. I couldn't find any information on this, but I have a sneaking suspicion that he had to have shot them either simultaneously or one right after the other, because the backdrop is the exact same. He uses like 4 or 5 of the same actors in it, and it just the look, the vibe, both movies feel very similar. 2000 Maniacs is certainly a way better movie, and it's way more famous. In that it's a lot more like the level of violence that was on display is like nothing of that time. I mean, he took everything in such to such an extreme that like nobody had seen anything like this, and he was just sort of at the forefront of sort of the midnight movie, and he started with Blood Feast a year before, but he. In an interview on the Blu-ray, he says he says that 2000 Maniacs was his favorite film. That was his favorite of all the films that he made, because it was the one that was the most successful with him trying to be successful. Whereas Blood Feast was sort of just a happy accident that occurred. This one was them actually putting in a lot of effort, and they had a bigger budget. They had like $50,000 or something to put behind this movie. And it's definitely a relic of its time. It takes place in the South, and it's about this town that comes back 100 years after the Civil War, and they lure tourists. They lure Yankee tourists into their town and kill them in a variety of different ways, some of which are very clever. Like there's this. They set up this whole centennial celebration, and they have these games that they play, and they do this barrel roll where, they put somebody in a barrel and roll them down a hill. But the thing is, they put these giant nails into the barrel. So as they're rolling down the hill, they're just being stabbed repeatedly by nails. So it's a pretty fun movie. Not very well made. I'll get more into this in my review, but the Blu-ray, it's a restored version, so they use something weird videos restoration, and then they took that restoration, but then they actually incorporated in other digital versions of the film to sort of make a complete version. So I guess the Something Weird version was missing some frames and things like that. And so they spliced in these other formats that make it a more complete version. So as you're watching it, the color changes, like the color grading changes, the aspect ratio changes, the sound changes. It's rough, man. Like this was not a good restoration. And the Moonshine Mountain version was absolutely atrocious. Like it's watchable, but it needs a much better restoration because it's not great. But the film itself, I'd never seen this before, so it was kind of fun.
Maybe movies like that need a decent transfer, but you almost don't want it to be too good.
No, you don't. No, definitely. I mean, like you saw the whole what Disney's doing with when they're restoring their animated films and how it's like removing they're restoring it so much that it's removing
you're
detail.
Taking things out.
Yeah, you don't want to do that, but I mean this is just I feel like they could easily, now I'm not an expert in restoration, I don't do that by trade, but I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to just get the color grade matched, throughout, like have it be an even color throughout and maybe fix up some of the audio. Like sometimes it sounds like they're talking in a tin can. It's just, it's not great. And the film, like there's just, the quality is so worn, and there's like these like sometimes it would be these like deep green bands that go up the screen, and it's like, come on now, was it really a restoration? When, like, what did you restore? Like,
it's a great way to test all of the colors on your TV and make sure they all come out.
It's just, I don't know, man. Like Arrow puts out a lot of really great stuff, and the package is great. Like there's a lot of really great special features and stuff on it, and I don't doubt that this may be the best version of this this film, but it's definitely not like a definitive version, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to go over this, but something we both saw that we were talking about earlier was John Mulaney's new Netflix special, Kid Gorgeous.
Yeah, we can talk about it. We don't normally talk about comedy specials on here too much, but
but it's something we both liked, and people are talking about it a lot online this week.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a mention.
Yeah, it's John Mulaney, former Saturday Night Live writer, who had this very good career as a stand-up comedian, doing a show at Radio City Music Hall as part of his most recent tour. It's for people that are already familiar with John Mulaney. One, you've probably already seen it, but two, if you haven't, it's very much more in his style of particular nature of observational humor, kind of mixed with this sort of these casual insertions of gentle surrealism that just kind of add another punched up to everything. If you want to, I don't know if you want to have any other observations on this.
I really enjoyed it. I like John Mulaney's stuff for the most part. And I thought that this was an overall really solid special. I laughed a lot. The bit about getting old, because he's 35, so he's just a little bit older than me. And just that whole bit about getting old and how he's like constantly wet. he's just constantly wet, and he's sitting and he gets up and he thinks that he sat in something, but he realized it was just him. Like that I really enjoyed that bit. And then the whole horse in a hospital bit I thought was just a stroke of genius.
Yeah, I honestly think that's maybe one of the only sort of comparisons, sort of comedic analyses of our current political climate that actually works just on a general level. Because a lot of it's just people trying to work through things that they themselves are trying to understand, and trying to do it with a kind of an authoritativeness that doesn't quite work. But the bit like, the horse in the hospital bit sort of takes a kind of confusion with this uncharted territory and makes it part of the comedy. And I think that's one thing that works about a lot of John Mulaney's style, is that he is sort of very personable and sincere. There are a lot of comedians that try and sort of use their own models of cynicism to try and kind of give everything that sort of edge. But the thing about Mulaney is that he is approaching everything through a very sincere lens, and that's how kind of everything comes together, and it's generally a lot more of an approachable comedy than what a lot of other people are doing right now.
Yeah. It's definitely recommended. It's on Netflix, so you can take a look at it. In fact, I think he has a few specials.
Yeah, there are a couple of them on there.
So, yeah, check out his stuff if you have. Did he have his own sitcom for a minute?
He did, but it apparently didn't.
I remember
go that well.
Yeah, I remember watching one episode, and it was on at a really weird time. It was on at like 1 a.m. or something.
Yeah, it ran a few episodes. Ratings were bad, and so they just kind of started burning it off.
And it was just like so unfunny. And I remember it was like before I knew who he was. It was before I saw him on Kroll Show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, who is this guy? Why does he have his own show? What is this? It was so confusing, but I'm glad that that he's found success with stand up and doing the, the hello. Is it hello again? Or hello?
Hello with Nick Kroll. That is also on Netflix. That is also very highly recommended from me.
That's the Broadway version of it. So they did the sketches on Kroll Show, which were amazing, and then they turned that into a Broadway show, which I haven't watched, but I heard nothing but good things. So
yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah, so check.
And they've also he and Nick Kroll have also hosted the Indie Spirit Awards for the past 2 years. And it's been very good.
Oh yeah, they were fantastic. The last 2 years that they were involved with that, they were great. Brutal. Loved it. All right, so that is John Mulaney, Kid Gorgeous at Radio City. I saw The Cleanse. This is directed by Bobby Miller.
All right.
This is a horror comedy that came out this weekend. Stars Johnny Galecki as this guy. He's this kind of timid pushover who decides that he needs to get his life straightened out. So he goes to this sort of spiritual health retreat to do this juice cleanse. And it's led by Angelica Houston and Oliver Platt. So that's amazing right there. And it turns out that this juice stuff that he drinks actually causes him to eject this thing from his body that manifests itself into a physical monster, like an actual creature.
That's pleasant.
As he's on this cleanse, shedding himself of his toxins and his hang-ups and all of his foibles, those things turn into an actual living creature. And it doesn't just happen to him, it happens to everybody that's attending the retreat. So it's not like, it is metaphorical to a certain extent, but it's very much in real life that this is occurring, because it happens to everybody. And it's just about what happens next after he gets this little creature. And it's a pretty interesting movie. It's pretty slight. I mean, there's not a lot to dive into with this one, but it's the thing about the creatures is they're done. I think it's like a mixture. There's like CG accents on them, but for the most part, they're done through puppet work, and they're pretty incredible looking. I really enjoyed the creatures. They're like gross, but at the same time, they're oddly adorable. So I really enjoyed the creature design in the film, and it's just about, I guess, him overcoming his issues, and I don't know, it's just, there's not much more to it than that. So it's maybe a light recommend for me on the cleanse, but it's sort of an interesting idea.
Yeah, the concept sounds cool enough.
I don't think we get enough creature features, so I was glad to see that we're getting this sort of creature feature that uses practical effects, largely practical.
I caught up with Francis Lee's feature debut, God's Own Country.
Oh yeah,
this past week. That's now on Netflix. It's about this kind of young farmer in Yorkshire who he's kind of sort of just going through life. He doesn't really want to work on the farm, but he has to because his father is ill, and this young man is also he's gay, but he's sort of in the closet. It's just sort of random hookups, and he can't emotionally connect to anyone until this migrant worker from Romania comes to the farm, and it's sort of about how he works through his feelings and their bond together. A lot of people have talked about this movie. A lot of people like it, and I like it too. It's sort of very well acted. It's very thoughtful about how it deals with the different kind of inner and outer conflicts of its characters in terms of them sort of realizing their identities and figuring out what their futures are, and how to work through them in relation to other people. One thing that people have noted about this movie is that the two main characters are a Romanian immigrant and a farmer from Yorkshire. So a lot of people have had trouble understanding the dialogue. But now that it's on Netflix, if you have a problem, you can just turn on the English subtitles.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I heard a lot of good things about this movie.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Cool. That's God's Own Country. The last one I'll mention, I don't think this is under embargo, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. I'll probably talk more about this closer to when it releases. I think it comes out in June, and that's Damsel. This is the new one from the Zellner brothers, David and Nathan Zellner. It stars Robert Pattinson and Mia Wasikowska as it's a Western. It's a Western comedy.
Ah. Not a lot of those.
No, there's not a whole lot. More importantly, there's not a lot of those that are any good. I think there's like one. There's Blazing Saddles. And that's pretty much the only good Western comedy I can think of, unless you want to count like some of those ones that sort of teeter on action thriller comedy, like Bone Tomahawk was a Western, but it was pretty funny too. But anyway, so Damsel is sort of it's sort of a twist on the whole damsel in distress thing, where Mia Wasikowska is this strong woman who is just constantly being rescued by men who just she doesn't need to be rescued, and yet they keep coming to her aid and fouling things up even more. And it's sort of a comedy of errors in a way, but there's a lot of really great, really funny dialogue in here. It's sort of an absurd, odd style of humor that I really enjoy. It's a silly movie, but it's done in sort of a dark way. I didn't see Kumiko the Treasure Hunter.
I saw that. That was good.
But I from what I've read, it seems like it sort of maybe has a similar tone where it's got it's sort of a comedy, but it's got these more kind of somber moments to it.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I did want to get around to seeing that eventually. I did see Kid Thing, the movie that they came out with before Kumiko, which I liked that. Kevin actually hated that movie. He gave it like a 0.5. He couldn't stand it. but didn't think it was too bad. At any rate, Damsel is definitely one to look out for. I really enjoyed it. Comes out
All right.
June 22nd, I think. So again, I'll be circling back to that one.
Okay.
Let's move on and talk about some release dates. So in theaters this week, we got Life of the Party. This is the new Melissa McCarthy comedy. Oh, looks bad. I don't know about this one. You interested in this?
That one that she's got. No, I don't know much about this one, but that one that she has coming out in a couple of months, I think. Can You Ever Forgive Me, about the woman that forges letters from authors. That looks kind of interesting.
Yeah, I saw a couple trailers for that. Maybe. It looks like it's definitely not a typical Melissa McCarthy movie. This one does look very much like a typical Melissa McCarthy movie. And, you know, she plays a newly divorced mother who decides to go back to college, and it's like the same college as her daughter or something. Oh, that's just not, that's not doing it for me. We also have Breaking In. This is the new one with, God, what's her name? Gabrielle Union. That's what I was trying to think of. I'm interested in this one. This looks like could be an interesting thriller.
Yeah.
The trailers I thought were really good, and so I'm slightly interested in that one. We have a documentary called Mountain. I think it's about mountain climbing from the looks of it. I think it's narrated by Willem Dafoe.
Be a good title for it.
Yeah,
then.
I think so. We have one that is currently one of my top movies of 2018, and that's Revenge. This will be out on Shudder as well as limited release. This is I talked about it before on the show. I have a review up on the site too. It's the directorial debut of Coralie Farge. It's incredible. Go see Revenge. Go see it in the theater if you can, but if not, it will be available at home. We got Beast. I heard pretty good things about this one. I don't know too much about it, but might give it a look. Let's see what else we got here. Terminal, The Seagull, movie called Higher Power. Not sure what that is. The Escape. Got The Day After.
There's a lot of movies that there was The Day After Tomorrow, and then there was The Day After, the TV movie in the 80s about nuclear war.
Oh, yeah.
It's people want to know, like recycling titles.
They want to know what's going on the day after.
They want to know what's happening tomorrow, or maybe even the day after tomorrow.
We don't know.
We've got to think ahead. Thing. Yeah, got to think ahead.
On VOD coming up this week, we got a movie called Prepper that comes out on Tuesday. The only thing I know about this is that the lead actor in this film killed himself on Facebook Live.
That's not good.
Yeah. I can't remember the reason.
I guess there's more notoriety surrounding the movie because of that then.
Yeah, I didn't know that this was the movie, because I remember hearing about that story, but I didn't put two and two together as far as what movie he was in. And then when I read the synopsis for this, it says like the last film from so-and-so. His name's Jay Bowdy. And then I looked it up, and yeah, sure enough, this was the movie he made right before he ended his own life, unfortunately. I think he was I think he got arrested for assault or something, and maybe he was looking at some jail time, and I'm not sure the whole story, but it's sad, and the movie doesn't look very good though.
It's a bad situation all around then, I suppose.
We also have Dating My Mother. That comes out on the 8th as well. Then on the 11th, Friday, we have Class Rank. Looks pretty bad. The Kissing Booth is going to be on Netflix. I'm not too familiar with that. It looks like some sort of teen comedy maybe. But yeah, probably not going to be very good. The Honor List, that doesn't look good. Higher Power looks pretty bad. The Escape, that's one that I just mentioned. It's also going to be a limited release with Gemma Arterton. And what's his name? I always forget his name. Dominic Cooper is in that as well. We also have Revenge. As I said, that'll be on Shudder.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I would. It's a tough watch. Because it's sort of a play on the 70s and 80s style rape revenge film, so that there is some difficult subject matter, but it's very well crafted.
All right.
On Blu-ray this week, for Tuesday, May 8th, we have The House That Dripped Blood is getting a Blu-ray release from 1971. Never saw that movie. Might be a good time to check it out.
It's a good title.
I know, right? The House That Dripped Blood. It's very descriptive. Like, you know exactly what you're going to get.
Too many titles just have too many movies just have very boring titles, you know?
Yep. We need more creative titles. I completely agree.
Escape or Revenge or something. You know, what are those movies? You're gonna see the title and then you're gonna forget about it. You need a house that drips blood.
Yep. Phantom Thread comes out.
Right.
I still haven't seen that. Still have not seen it.
It's really good.
That's what I hear. Gun Crazy from 1950 comes out. Might have to see that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So have I, but I just never saw it. Dalton Trumbo wrote it. Interesting. Batman Ninja comes out. It's a pretty highly anticipated DC animated film. Sort of an anime style reimagining of Batman. Looks kind of interesting. Let's see what else we have here. Caged Fury from 1990. Looks like might be a women in prison film. Didn't know they still made those in the 90s, but
apparently
here we go.
They did.
Here we go. Violence in a Women's Prison from 1982. Keeping with the
sensing a theme here.
Yeah, keeping a women in prison theme here. Emmanuel and the Last of the Cannibals from 1977 comes out. Another sort of grindhouse film.
I mean, at least those movies have memorable titles.
Yeah.
We do need titles. Now I'm just getting more worked up about this.
Yep. We need better titles.
Yeah. There's a critic named Mike McGranahan, and he wrote a book just filled with different essays about sort of different just subjects that he thinks about as a film critic. And I think one chapter was about, you know, titles. You could have a movie that has just all these completely boring one-word titles that you just see and forget about. Or you could have the full title of the movie Borat, which is very long, but you hear Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan, and that sticks with you.
Yeah.
You might not remember it, but you will know that movie with a very long title.
Yeah, it's like that 7 Stages movie that I saw, Tribeca, that has like unbelievably long title. Speaking of shitty titles, 50 Shades Freed comes out. What's going on with the 50 Shades Freed? 50 Shades Freed is the title.
Those words don't have anything to do with each other.
That is the title of the movie.
Like, there's 50 Shades of Grey, which is a pun on the name. And then there's, what's the second one? 50 Shades Darker, which at least feels like a coherent set of words.
Yes.
But then 50 Shades Freed. It feels like there should almost be like a colon after 50 Shades. 50 Shades, separate part, Freed.
Yeah, but there's not. So that's just, that's just how it is. I don't know. I never saw any of those movies, so.
Me neither.
Let's see what else we have here. Miss Sloane from 2016 is getting a Blu-ray release. That's pretty much it. Criterion this week, we got Moonrise from 1948. So should have a review for that one up this week. Stay tuned for that. And I think that is going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email us at feedback@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter at FilmPulseNet and at KBake_99. And if you have a minute, take a look at our Patreon page, patreon.com/FilmPulse. Consider helping us out by becoming a subscriber. For Ken Bakley, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.
Bye.